is Sunday, August 28th, 2022, and I'm in an open environment talking about the latest updates in the world of immigration. And then hopefully after that, if you have any questions, I will also answer your questions. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Al Parsai. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, or RCIC-IRB. I have more than 11 years of experience in the field of immigration, representing more than 3,000, I don't know how many people from 55 different countries. And I also teach immigration consulting at various institutions. And today, what we are going to do, as usual, of my Sunday live sessions, I will nation to Canada. If you are live, you can also ask your questions on the chat box. Please remain calm. I will get back to you and I will answer the questions as quickly as I can. So let's, without further ado, let's go through the latest updates. So the first one that I want to talk to you, you probably are aware that the immigration system is making a huge shift in terms of definition of categories of work. So right now we are using a NOC 2016, or National Occupational Classification of 2016, which divides the jobs in Canada into different levels known as skill level A, B, C, D, and also skill type 0, which is for management positions. But the ESDC, or the Government of Canada, the Labor Department, they decided to move from this system to a tier system, which the way that they define jobs are different. I have another article about the tier system. You can check it out later on settler.ca. And those changes were into effect by ESDC last year, but the immigration authorities decided to adopt those this year, and they probably will do that in in the fall of 2022. So within a couple of months we will see, or maybe 3 months, we will see the new tier system be in effect. Now, generally speaking, for the most part, the way that it affects immigration to Canada is insignificant. However, there will be, because of these shifts, some of the jobs will be upgraded to qualifiers for immigration to Canada. And obviously, all the uh, protocols and procedures and processes for immigration will change because of this tier system, the ones that are related to job classifications. We have a piece of news. We just published this morning, and I post a link here. Good morning, Christopher. So I'll just post it here. And so it's called the programs that are affected by the knock, and you can take a look at it. But there are a list of different kinds of jobs. So if you, for example, look at express entry, there are some on the article. We explain different tiers and how they fall under different categories, etc. So that would be a good idea if you take a look at those. The second piece of news that I would like to talk to you is that newcomers in Eastern Ontario will have more access to settlement services. So the government has considered assigning more budget to the immigration from Ontario. Keep that in mind that Ontario, in terms of population, is the largest province in Canada, and it's a magnet for immigration. Majority of immigrants, they will end up living in Ontario. Either they directly immigrate to Ontario, or later on they move from other provinces to Ontario. The largest city in Canada, Toronto, is located in Ontario, and also uh, the capital of Canada, Ottawa, is located in Ontario. So, if you want to know more about these changes to the settlement services in Eastern Ontario and the budget that has been assigned to the settlement service organizations, I just posted the link here on the chat box, and I will also post the link below this video so you can read through this and learn more about this. The other issue, which probably is the one of the most issues, is about the fact that since COVID-19, many of the schools in Canada, they move towards offering more and more online courses, and that's why students, they usually have a mixture of online courses and in-person courses. And in fact, some of the some of the schools in Canada, they rarely offer in-person classes. And because of that, an anomaly in the immigration system, because the study permit system qualifies a program for a study permit if at least 50% of that program is offered in person. In 2020 and 2021, the government of Canada made a temporary change to that policy, and they said that even if less than 50% of the program is in person, or in some cases, even if it's 100% online, that's absolutely fine. We still consider this a valid program for study permit purposes. And of course, now that most of the schools have reopened and they offer in person classes, the question is that will this policy continue or not? So, the good news is that the government of Canada has created a new version of this policy, and this new version will be available on until August 2023. I just posted the link in the chat box. I will also post the link below this video. It's already actually been posted. So if I just go through a few things that you need to know. So after consultation with provinces and territories and education stakeholders, IRCC decided to extend its distance learning measures. International students can now pursue their studies online from outside Canada while remaining eligible for a postgraduate work permit until August 31st, 2023, but they are being reduced in scope. So, as we transition back to pre pandemic requirements, we encourage international students to come back to Canada. A transition period is available for those who may need some time to do so, and that's what IRCC posted on August 25th, 2022. And then the period is this. According to IRCC, the extension of temporary distance learning measures will affect those starting programs from September 1, 2022 to August 31st, 2023. Specifically, these measures will apply. No more than 50% of the credits earned can be completed outside Canada to remain eligible for PGWP. Studies completed online outside Canada starting on September 1st, 2023 will be deducted from the length of a future PGWP. So as you can see, still you can have a study permit, you can do your online studies, but based on these changes for postgraduate work permit, which is an open work permit that you receive after completion of your studies, there will be some limitations. So the next piece of news is quite interesting because we digged into the data of the immigration system, and we realized that we had a record number of permanent residency in the second quarter of 2022. In fact, Canada admitted nearly 232,000 new permanent residents in Q2 of 2022. So, recent Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada data revealed that Canada admitted nearly 232,000 new permanent residents in the second quarter of 2022. So far this year, April has seen 36,350 new permanent residents, May 37,810, and June another 43,705. And this is amazing news. And of course, based on this, Canada will likely meet their target of more than 430,000 new immigrants in the year 2022. Keep that in mind. The backlogs are still huge. The backlogs have dropped from 2.7 million to zero point 0.4 million, but still we have a huge backlog. Remember that all the backlog doesn't belong to permanent resident applications. It also covers citizenship applications and temporary resident applications like temporary resident visas, work permit, and study permits. But in terms of the immigration to Canada, the backlogs are still high. They're probably more than 400,000. I don't have the exact figures, but be, uh, when we look at this progress, we see hope, and that's good news. This doesn't mean that you will immediately receive a response on your permanent resident application, or if you apply today, your application will be processed quickly. By all means, it doesn't mean that. However, it means that at least we see um, some movement in the positive direction. In fact, this is a good segue for the next piece of news that I want to share with you. So, recently, the Minister of Immigration, actually on August 24th, 2022, he announced that the government of Canada has hired new employees to assist them in processing the applications. So they hired about 1,250 new immigration officers. Those new immigration officers will assist in reducing the backlogs. That's part of the strategy by the government to investing more than $80 million, about $85 million, in the processing of immigration applications. And because of that, we see that we have new hires, and those new hires will help with the process. That's the good news. The bad news is that many of those new hires are not quite familiar with the complicated cases. And I know that they have access to an amazing source of professionals at IRCC, that they understand the immigration law very well. But at the end of the day, they are new officers, and we might see some anomalies in terms of the applications that they are processing. And I've seen that, albeit rarely, among some of my clients, but majority of my clients are luckily are not affected by these changes in terms of the quality of processing of their application. In terms of the backlogs, still, as I mentioned, we have 2.4 million people in different backlogs of IRCC, and this means that if you're submitting an application, even for a simple temporary resident visa, expect delays. One other thing that you might like to know is that after COVID, Canada opened their borders to um, different countries to come to Canada. We still are using ArriveCAN. Uh, I'm very hopeful that ArriveCAN, which is an app that you need to fill and to show that you are vaccinated, etc., to travel to Canada. The government will likely scrap that in the near future, and I keep my fingers crossed that happens, and we will see more tourists coming to Canada. But despite those limitations, still we saw that in June 2022, for example, about 1.7 million trips from the United States to Canada. And that's good news. It means that, again, the Americans are traveling to Canada, and that means they will bring in money and joy to our economy. And that's great news for us. It means that more and more Americans are traveling to Canada. And before pandemic, about 14 million Americans travel to Canada every year. So we had about 14 to 15 million travels per year just from the United States to Canada. And that was great news for our economy. And it looks like that those numbers are being restored, and hopefully we see more trips from the United States to Canada, and of course more trips from other countries to Canada. The other piece of news is that International Experience Canada, or IEC program. So Canada opened the rounds of invitations for the International Experience class, or IEC. Remember that IEC is limited to the recent graduates from certain countries in Canada, about 30 countries in the world, sorry, not in Canada, about 30 countries in Canada. Uh, the citizens of those countries can participate in IEC, and with the help of IEC, depending on which type of program that you are using, you'll be able to secure a work permit in Canada, come to Canada, and eventually study, grow in Canada. Now, the countries that have the highest chances of selection in the past, we have different programs under IEC. So, our working holiday in the past, what we saw, and the invitations that they have been issued on August. In August, Ireland is number one, Japan, New Zealand, Portugal, and Germany. Under young professionals, Australia, France, Germany, Portugal, and Ireland. And under international co op internship, Australia, France, Germany, Ireland, Portugal. So you see similar names appear a lot. Again, remember that some of these selections are based on the draws that they are making. If you're interested in international um, uh, IEC program, I encourage you to read our article. I posted the link below this video. So after this live session, you can take a look at that. And for those of you who are live, I also posted here. And the last piece of news that I would like to share with you in terms of the study permit holders. So, Canada invites a lot of international students nowadays, and they secure study permits and they study in Canada. But we would like to know that where these people are coming from. So IRCC recently provided a number of study permit holders by country of citizenship and year in which the permits became effective. We compiled the data. Parsai Immigration Services, actually, our journalists did that, and the most study permit holders from January 2019 until June 2020 are coming from these countries. So, number one on the list, roughly speaking, is India. For example, in 2019, India had 138,000 um, study permit holders, and that number was increased to 169,000 in 2021. And so far in 2022, Indian citizens have received more than 82,000 study permits. The second on the list is China. Then we have Japan, Philippines, Nigeria, Korea, Iran, Colombia, France, Vietnam, Brazil, Mexico, and the United States of America. So these are the top countries in terms of study permit issuance for Canada. For example, in 2022, when we are in the middle of the year, so far India had 82,000 international students till June 2022. Remember, China 21,000, Japan 6,400, Philippines 6,000, Nigeria 5,600, Korea 5,200, Iran 4,600, Colombia 4,400, France 4,400, Vietnam 4,100, Brazil 4,100, Mexico 4,000, and the United States 2,000. And that's wraps up my session about the latest news in the world of immigration. I also want to pitch one of my videos. So, I recently published a video about procedural fairness in Canada and procedural fairness letters. Remember that if the immigration authorities suspect that you are inadmissible to Canada, or they have serious concerns about your application, they may issue you a procedural fairness letter That letter is super important. You need to respond to it in a timely fashion. And what I can tell you is that my video about procedural fairness letter could assist you understand the importance of PFL and how to respond to it. I also have an article about PFL. If you look at that video, the link of the article is also below the video. I encourage you to watch it. Thank you very much for those of you who attended this live session. I will come back every Sunday at 10 a.m. and I will discuss different immigration options to Canada and also discuss the latest updates and news. Please subscribe to our channel, enable notifications so whenever I have a live session, you will be informed about my live session. Thank you and see you soon.